PlayStation Home has had a lot of content throughout the years, whether from the closed beta, the original GDC unveiling, or even the open beta's 7-year lifespan. With a platform as large as PlayStation Home in conjunction with the lack of archival efforts when the original Sony servers were still active save for the John Drinkwater archive, it is unfortunately no surprise to home preservationists that there is plenty of lost media surrounding the service. In this video, I will cover 5 of what I consider to be some of the holy grails of PlayStation Home related lost media. These are all formed around my own opinion from all the data we currently have and may not be representative of the views held by the rest of the PlayStation Home community. If you have your own opinion on what you consider a holy grail, do feel free to let us know in the comments below. With that out of the way, let's begin. First few pieces of PlayStation Home lost media I want to talk about come from a developer known as Irem. Irem was responsible for making a handful of beloved home spaces, including Irem Square. In 2011, this company's works would disappear entirely from the home service, leaving many ex-Irem employees to form Grails, who would continue to create home content until the service's discontinuation. One of Irem's most noteworthy pieces of lost media is a space known as Gekito Meadows. This space appeared around 2011 as Irem's April Fool's gag for that year and was only released in Japan and other Asian territories such as Hong Kong. This space is a precursor to last year's April Fool's gag known as Semifinalist Fantasia. Remember that name because we're coming back to it later. This space was essentially a mini RPG from within home where the goal was to make your way to the top of a castle while being able to fight hostile mobs that stand in your way. You could either play as your home avatar or whatever character you were assigned from Semifinalist Fantasia if you played that. Due to the short period of time it was available as well as the circumstances of Irem's withdrawal looming near, it's no surprise that this scene is pretty hard to find. Couple that with the general lack of Japanese home cache, and yeah. The next piece of home content that was lost with Irem is known as Sparkle in the Void of Space. The space was home to a 3D space shooter minigame based on the R-Type series of games. While I couldn't find an exact date, it seems to have released sometime around 2009 or 2010. When Irem pulled out of home, this space alongside all of their others disappeared. While I don't consider it nearly as rare as Gekito Meadows due to its longer run on the home platform, the chances of finding it still aren't particularly great. Going back to an earlier entry, you may remember me talking about Semifinalist Fantasia. While the spaces made for that April Fool's gag happen to be missing as well. For the uninitiated, Semifinalist Fantasia was kinda like the successor Gekito Meadows, which was a mini RPG from within home. However, Semifinalist Fantasia contained a bit more to do than just scaling the wall of a castle, but due to the similar release circumstances as Gekito Meadows, it's just as rare as the former space. So the next 2 things that are lost from PlayStation Home we'll talk about come from none other than Sony themselves, the very company that made home in the first place. I know it sounds surprising, but even Sony's own spaces weren't safe from the sands of time. If you were around during the time of Home's reveal at GDC, you'll know that one of the main selling points of Home during that time was the introduction of trophies into PSN as 3D trophies that could be shown off within a special space known as the Hall of Fame or the Trophy Room. When Home was released, this was nowhere to be found and trophies were eventually implemented into PSN not too unlike Xbox Live's achievements. And while it is true that the GDC era build of Home has been found, this specific space is not a part of it, unfortunately. One theory as to why this room never saw the light of day was due to the workload devs would have had to create trophies compared to the simplistic method, but that's just a theory. It is unknown if the trophy room ever made it into the closed beta. Any form of this space at all doesn't appear to exist anywhere outside of Sony's own grasp. As Home's closed beta progressed, the entire product slowly began to shift into something else entirely. Around the tail end of this transition, a specialized version of Home Square appeared on American Home servers. This version is entirely different from the central Plaza open beta users were met with. It's practically an entirely different place compared to what was shown in the open beta when users actually got to try the service. And because this version of the space was only available for a short time, on top of being delegated to a very specific phase of the closed beta, it's potentially even rarer than Gekito Meadows due to that. Alright, while I was finishing the script, I noticed another scene I wanted to mention, but forgot to add in the script originally, so instead of calling me lazy, we'll just call this a bonus entry. Yeah, we'll just do that. Making this quick, we're talking about the Tokyo Game Show spaces. A lot of them are missing because 1, lack of Japanese caches, and 2, lack of Japanese caches around the time period. Notice a pattern? But basically it's kind of like the virtual E3 but in Japan. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I also hope you've learned about the importance of preserving your cache data, as a lot of the lost media might be able to be found from within there if you went to these spaces during the time they were available. If you still have Home on your PS3, I'd recommend consulting both Destination Home as well as Home Laboratories for a guide on this process. And if you do dump your cache data, donate to both of the groups I mentioned earlier. Both of their Discord servers will be linked in the description, and if you want to learn more about Home in general, I will link my own Home iceberg in the description as well. Thank you for watching.